Welcome to Queer View Mirror, a show about queer people, by queer people, for queer people, and our allies. I am Dawn.
And I'm Scott.
And today, our special guest is Geraldine McManus from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Geraldine made news after creating the first oil pipelines demonstration camp in Manitoba in 2018.
Geraldine is a Dakota Two-Spirit woman and has been an activist for Indigenous and environmental issues for 25 years. She lived in her demonstration camp for over a year, dealing with winter in Manitoba and all kinds of hazards. She received numerous threats from the community before the camp eventually burned down.
She also participated in the pipeline protest that began in Standing Rock, North Dakota in 2016. The protest drew international attention and was one of the largest in history.
Geraldine lived and worked in Standing Rock's camp for several months, participating in ceremonies and providing education for Indigenous and non-Indigenous people alike.
Environmental issues are a major concern at this time, Scott. Geraldine is another queer hero making a difference. Let's jump into our episode right here on Queer View Mirror.
Step up, climb in. We've been waiting for you. Come on, let's go. Wheels begin turning. We've come so far. Just think where we can go. Hey, now I'm glad you're here. I want to hear your point of view.
Today, we are talking to Geraldine McManus about the demonstration camps that are protesting the oil pipelines. Scott, I'm really inspired by Geraldine's passion and the role Indigenous people play in protecting and preserving our environment.
I am too, Dawn. Geraldine reminded us that Indigenous people have always understood the need to protect the environment.
But corporations are still pursuing their own economic agendas, and they need to be held accountable. We should all have an awareness of these environmental concerns and the communities that are impacted.
A lot of these concerns are shared by people globally, Dawn. In the Dakota's pipeline controversy, a U.S. judge ruled in 2020 that the government had not studied the effects on the quality of the human environment enough.
This is the problem, and it takes a rare person and passion to do the work Geraldine is so committed to. I love that these camps bring people together and teach about Indigenous traditions and educate us about the dangers to our environment.
It's inspiring that these Indigenous women have been leading the cause. I also love the prophecy that Geraldine shares, that people of all colors would come together to help Indigenous people fight in what she calls a spiritual war.
I appreciate the deep spirituality that is guiding Geraldine and the Indigenous peoples to make us do everything we can to preserve our land and water. The Indigenous peoples are so deeply connected to the land, and we really need to listen to the wisdom that they offer. Let's go to the interview, Scott.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. And thank you so much for joining us today. We've got Geraldine Yvonne McManus, a rebel with a cause, and a really great story. So Geraldine, why don't we just jump on in and please tell us about yourself.
I'm a Dakota Two-Spirit woman, born in the prairies here at the heart of Turtle Island in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and traveled extensively to camps and created my own camp here in Manitoba, the first camp here in Manitoba, and that initiated 2 other camps to open up in Manitoba here. So,
and what are camps?
Camps, started off from we set up camps to block roads, to stop from disastrous corporations that are destroying land and water and medicines. throughout Turtle Island, which is all of North America. So I think it's something that goes on everywhere else as well. It's incredible in South America as well. And but camps are what Indigenous people are setting up around the country to bring awareness and to help stop or slow down the process of the industrial complex, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned a while ago that you were, so is Standing Rock where you said you were at Standing Rock. So Standing Rock was one of those camps?
Standing Rock was one of the largest camps in history of all of North America that was set up. We had at any time 1,000 to 20,000 people who attended the camps and lived at the camps. And that was the biggest, I think, highlighting of the oil pipelines that are going through the country. And so Standing Rock was monumental for environmental activists in the Indigenous communities. And we had people from around the world come to Standing Rock. Every nation in the United States attended and came. Of course, many activists from Canada as well came down to Standing Rock in the Dakotas. And it was just an incredible time. It was a great learning experience. It brought me back to my true Dakota roots as a woman. I worked closely with the elders, worked in response to the Women's Council's way of being, and learned many, many things. And when the camp finally shut down and we all went home, before we left, the elders there told us to go home and take care of our own communities and our own spaces and look at what's going on around us where we come from. And so returning from the United States after being there for quite a while, I came home and did just that and set up the first camp here in Manitoba and lived on top of the pipelines and the gas lines for over a year in my van, in a teepee, and in a wigwam during the winter time. So I made a point of where I was, and I made a point of Dakota history there, and educated many people who came out, which was majority professors from universities, students, people from the surrounding areas, people from the closest reserve, which was Rosal River. People from there came out and supported the camp. Elders came from all over. The Dakota, my Dakota elders came out and did a pipe ceremony for me out there, and so a lot of communication happened, a lot of awareness, a lot of understanding as to why Indigenous people take these stands. It was an important time, and it still is. And but since then, my camp has been burned down.
Oh. Yeah,
I was out at a gathering at the tar sands, meeting with the clan grandmother of the water, and I got back and was starting to try and do some work in Winnipeg. And while I was in Winnipeg, they burnt my camp down. First, all my cords of wood that I'd bought for the camp, which was over 14 cords of wood, which is a lot of wood, I'll tell you. And so the first day when I was back at the camp, they burnt down the wood. I came back to Winnipeg, and by the time I got back to the camp again, the rest of the camp was burnt down. The townsfolk or the people in the rural area were responsible for that, and the fire people who came out the night before watched the camp burn down.
Wow.
and didn't call the RCMP until the afternoon of the next day. And by the time I got back and spoke with the police, the RCMP, they had said that there was really nothing they could do because they didn't find out about the fire until the day after. So I was quite surprised because the wood and the wigwam ran extensively, probably about 70 feet, 100 feet was covered on the road, which means that the fire could probably have been seen for up to 5 miles away. And I was in the center of the prairie. So a lot of people had to have seen the fire. Mm-hmm. But I guess that was their way of getting rid of me. They didn't want me bringing this kind of awareness out there. And because Enbridge, the actual company of Enbridge, who puts out a lot of the oil and pushes it through over the border to the Dakotas, is a mile away from the camp, and I can see it across the field. So I was threatened quite a bit out there. I had trucks come out, monitor me. I had trucks monitoring me from all different areas of the road. They were watching me from across the field with binoculars. They rode their quads through my camp on many occasions. I was threatened by the townspeople. I was yelled at. I was verbally abused big time, but I stood my ground with everybody and simply stated that it was important for people to understand the damages that were being caused by the oil pipelines that were breaking throughout the country. And I think that's the point. And also to understand that the lands that they go through are traditional territory, and that even though they get okayed and approved by certain individuals around the country, that doesn't mean that each and every individual believes that it should have been approved. Mm-hmm. So we all have our points to make, and we do our best. And I've been active for many years. I used to be involved in activism when I was in BC back in the 90s. So it's not something that I just decided to do. It's something that's inside me. It's in my genetics. As Indigenous people, we were given the I guess in a way it's culturally, we all understood that Creator put the red people here on Turtle Island to protect and to preserve what we have here. And so it's always been the Indigenous people's job to do this. And we've been doing it for a long time. It's just never been as recognized as it is today because of social media. Mm-hmm. And everyone's got a phone to video record stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very helpful for that, for every activist around the world to be seen and to be heard now for us taking that stand and believing that human beings need to stand up against destructive corporations around the world.
And you're right.
One world to live on. That's it. This is it.
Mm-hmm. One thing I really appreciate about Indigenous culture is, there's a lot of discussion about land stewardship and maintaining the earth. And just to rewind a little bit, Don shared something with me when he was doing your prelim that I just found fascinating. And I was hoping you could speak to the prophecy that led up to Standing Rock and how that, influenced or guided your actions to set up the camp there.
Well, Standing Rock was not set up by me. Standing Rock was called to action by the people of Standing Rock, the women. Okay. The women called to action for people to come and help to stop Dakota Access Pipeline that was going through their old traditional territories. Mm-hmm. And so that whole thing was created by the Lakota people there. But when the Dakota or Nakota people go, that Dakota especially go there, it is our home. It's considered our homeland for the Lakota, Nakota, and the Dakota. So when many of us went home, of course, we were given work to do specifically as I was. And so the camp itself what it did was re-energize the peoples from the land, and it activated much more for myself. It activated me in me as to who I am as a Dakota woman and the strength and the power that I hold. And that was really important for me. That's what I took away from that. And I can't speak for other people, but I came home totally activated, sitting and talking with the people that I spoke with at Standing Rock. It was incredible. We had an incredible amount of intelligent people come into the camps to help advocate and to work with the Indigenous communities. So it for me, and I know for many other people, it did something that will live with me for the rest of my life and will help me to be the Dakota woman that I was always meant to be and that I've always strived to be. And I continued to do work in regards to all of the stuff that I learned and to a new understanding and a new way of activism that has to emerge. And that's what I'm working on right now.
I was referring specifically to the black spider prophecy.
Oh, okay. Okay. So prophecy, we always understood in the Dakotas that we had known that the time of the black snake would be recognized by our people, and that we were to help to stop and prevent it from continuing because of its destruction that it will cause to the land. So a part of that was that the pipelines became those black snakes in what we can understand in our prophecy, because back in the day when our older people seen these things, they didn't know what they were. So they called them what they thought they were, which were black snakes. That's what they saw under the ground. And, so in simple terms today, when we look at pictures that were taken of the pipelines underneath the ground, you can see that it's just looks like a bunch of snakes crawling through the land. And also, so that idea, we understand it and see it today, that those lines run with black oil. And that was what our ancestors meant about the black snake would run through our lands and destroy our lands one day, and that we were going to stand up and do something to help and prevent this if we could. So that's our understanding. And there was also another prophecy of a black spider that we would see across the land as well. And so there's many other things that are around that understanding. And so these were things that our elders seen and understood. We also knew that all people of color would come to our land one day, and that we would need to work with these people to help to save the land. And I think that was a part of as well with the white buffalo calf woman when she brought the peace pipe. So we had to sit with our pipes and to pray and for the land and pray for peace amongst the people, all the people who are on our land. So it's about unity as well. But the prophecies are very important for Indigenous people, and there's many prophecies throughout many different tribes that I couldn't even speak about, because this is all a big part of the true Indigenous understanding of this land. And so today we have to work with that in our new ways, and we have to understand those old prophecies and understand how does it affect our people today. So that's an important part to understand. And what's going on right now is a huge spiritual war against the people. And it's been a spiritual war against our people for a long time because of our connection to the land and the ceremonies that we hold in regards to that. So there's a lot more at stake for our people than most people understand or could appreciate maybe at times. And so today we have to find new innovative ways to accomplish the work as activists. And those are things that I work on.
Well, you mentioned something about being Dakota. You are a Dakota tribe member. Could you elaborate a little bit about Dakota?
Well, I'm a Dakota because my grandmothers both came from down south. In our history, many Dakota people were sent up to Canada because Dakota territory was vast. It extended from the States right through Canada, from Sioux Falls in Ontario all the way to the Alberta.
Wow, that is huge.
It is very huge, and it goes down. So when everything happened, Sitting Bull tried to stay up here in Manitoba, actually in Winnipeg. Sitting Bull tried to stay in this area because one of the oldest tribes of the Dakotas is here, called Sioux Valley in Manitoba. Sitting Bull tried to stay here. He traveled extensively throughout Canada and was sent back eventually by Canadian authorities, where he knew he was going to get executed, and he did. But before that, he had sent a lot of the Dakota people up to Canada to escape what he knew was going to be coming, because Sitting Bull was a very well-known man to see things, and he was an infamous seer and an incredible man. So after that, of course, then there was the Dakota 38 hangings, the largest mass hangings in all of the Dakotas, when there was a skirmish that went on with the Dakotas and the settlers. Lincoln was asked to get approval to hang 300 Dakotas. He narrowed it down to 38 and then plus 2. But so during that time as well, over 500 Dakotas escaped and came up again to Canada. Many Dakotas are up here in Canada because of those skirmishes that occurred in the past, and still live here and thrive today. Sitting Bull, told our people as well back in the day to go out and to blend in with all the other tribes. So we have a lot of Dakota-blooded people as well throughout the tribes, throughout many provinces here in Canada. So all of this history is extremely important. And I'm one of the Dakota people that works on establishing that recognition here in Winnipeg and Manitoba, in the city. I work with my 2 Dakota elders who are Sitting Bull's grandchildren, purebloods. And those are my elders that I work with here in the city. And my uncle Calvin has created the White Buffalo Spiritual Society, which I'm a part of. And of course, I'm involved in other stuff that I'm creating, and with the camp as well, and raising awareness, education, the matriarch system, tribal laws. So I work extensively with all kinds of things here in regards to education around the Dakota peoples here in Manitoba. It's still, a lot of it's still in the works. So I'm looking forward to accomplishing as much as I can as a Dakota woman here in the city of Winnipeg.
Great. You've mentioned the White Buffalo Calf Woman, and I understand you carry the hair of the White Buffalo Calf Woman. What is that all about?
Yeah. The White Buffalo Calf Woman was the woman who came about 2,000 years ago to our people in the Dakotas, and she brought the pipe to the people. And interesting story around that. But she was at some point said she would come when we needed her the most. And so I believe this is that time. I believe she is back. I think a lot of people in the Dakotas believe she is back. So I was shown, it's really kind of hard. It's a really extensive story, but I'm going to narrow it down as best as I can. I was communicated to by my father 9 years after his passing that I was going to see the White Buffalo and exchange my hair with him. I didn't understand what this all meant, but I followed what I was shown and prepared for 4 days to go see the White Buffalo here in the zoo, at the Assiniboine Zoo in Winnipeg. He's under protection in the zoo, and now has a sister. So there's 2 of them now. And so I was shown in a vision that I was going to go see this buffalo, and he was going to give me his hair from his head, because this is apparently the white buffalo that many of the Dakotas have been waiting for. when White Buffalo Calf Woman said she would return, and we would know she would return by the birth of one particular buffalo. Many Dakotas come from all over to see this particular white buffalo in Winnipeg and presume it to be that one. So that's the one I had to go and see. And I went and seen it and did a particular ceremony that I was shown to do, and spoke mentally with the buffalo. And I have a brief kind of documentary I put together with pictures that my relative was taken that came with me to see the white buffalo in the zoo. And so through that, I spoke with the buffalo. He came in and pushed his head through the fence and I was allowed to take hair from his head, from this buffalo. And I was asked at some point by an elder, how many hairs did he give me? And at that point, I'd never counted them. And at that point, I did count them, and they were 7 of the hairs that the white buffalo gave me from his head. So very significant. All of this is very significant. I've talked with elders about this. I spoke with Arvo Lookenhorst, who actually holds the bundle from the White Buffalo Calf Woman, who's been, and that bundle has been handed down for thousands of years. So nobody can say to me as to exactly what's going on. I'm just advised by my elders that I've been chosen to carry these hairs, which are very significant, because the hair, as I don't know how many people understand this, but the hair are people we hold very special because it's our spirit. And so when we get the hair of something, we carry the spirit of that animal. So buffalo in particular, very important to the Plains people, as we were called the Buffalo Nation back in the day. And so a lot of importance to all of these understandings. And so I carry now the hair of the white buffalo, and I carry it with me when I go. And only certain times I'm spoken to from my ancestors to leave a little piece and at a particular camp. And so it has a lot of meaning. It's really incredible. And I would have to really go into all of this. And a lot of this is going to be put into my book, and it's going to be all documented and detailed extensively. But right now, my elders, we all just wait to see. And I'm actually being guided by my elders now in regards to what all of this means. Spiritually, I understand, and much of it I can't really talk about, because there is some prophecies that are going on right now that people don't know about, and I'm not privy to be able to allow to speak about it as I'm being advised by my elders. So lots going on around that. It's a very big spiritual thing that's going on, and I'm right in the midst of it here at the heart of Turtle Island, and I'm waiting and just continuing to work and do what I'm being shown to do every day. And
well, so earlier today, you mentioned something about there is a big spiritual occurrence happening globally. Would you want to share something to us about that?
Well, I feel, yes, this is a whole spiritual thing going on around the world. When we look at what Indigenous communities are doing around the world right now, holding space, holding on to their territories, standing up in many different ways. But there is also something that I think the people don't understand, that a lot of the people around the world still hold on to who we have been and who our ancestors were. And many original people from all the lands are in, I believe, deep prayer right now, and trying to create a higher consciousness from our prayers. Years ago, there was a documentary called Fire on the Mountain. And that was where all the traditional people, all from all around the world, gathered and shared their traditional ceremonies. It was proven there at that time that every original person from around the world had the exact same ceremonies. We used the exact same tools. We little things changed because of different landscapes or medicines, But other than that, we are all exactly the same. Out of that gathering came to 13 grandmothers
Wow.
from around the world. And those women still travel. Some of them have passed on, but they still are active and involved in that kind of gathering of the women. And so, yes, it's a spiritual war in the idea that the way that Indigenous people are connected to their land, it's a spiritual connection. Which is why we can communicate with the plants, and we can communicate with the animals, and we communicate with anything. For myself, I carry a rock in my bundle that this rock spoke to me. And I've heard medicines speak with me. And that's the spiritual connection that we talk about. And how do we try to tune into that spiritual connection? That's a very important aspect of something that everybody needs to start understanding that they're capable to do. We don't only have our five senses, we have much, much more. And that understanding with the traditional and the original peoples around the world is still completely understood. And so I think that's what I mean about a spiritual war for us, because as industrial corporations destroy the land, they destroy that connection that we have with that land, that we feel that we need to support and defend. So in essence, the world itself is a spiritual realm that we live in because of our connection to everything. What happened is over time is society, Western society has made people to think that we don't, that's hogwash, that you can't communicate through your mind, that you can't connect, that the water doesn't speak and the rocks don't speak and the plants don't speak. That's it's been proven to be absurd, because Indigenous people totally understand this connection. And I totally do, because I do connect in that way, which is why I was able to speak to the white buffalo and get him to run across a field to come and speak with me and give me his hair. So you can't make this stuff up. I can't make this stuff up. It's real and it's going on. It's happening with me. And I speak about it to particular people at time. Some people get it and some people don't. I'll have some people who will just stand up and walk out of the room because they just absolutely think I'm out of my mind. But you know what? At some point in history, we're all going to come to the same conclusion. And that time is coming near.
Yeah. We're slowly running out of time here, but I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. You mentioned the 13 grandmothers, and you also mentioned that most of the activist actions are led by women. Could you elaborate on that?
Well, it's a proven fact. If you look into who started and created many of the camps around the country, it's women. Reason I know that is because I'm in communicado with many of these women. I'm friends with these women. I've met these women. I totally, I totally get it. Mind you, one camp north of Manitoba here, north of Winnipeg, a camp is there, and there was a male elder who's holding down that camp in Hollow Water. I went out and I spoke with him, and I stayed at that camp as well. But other than that, most every other camp is created by women. Of course, many of men support the women and are at the camps as well. And it's a wonderful balance of support. But most all head speakers of camps are female. And that's because the women, we are totally more connected to the land than most. My elder has spoken to me about that already, my Uncle Calvin. So I totally got his perception on that as he explained it to me. And so there is a great majority of women who are doing on the East Coast, down south, north, west. You can look into it and you'll see.
Well, speaking of elders, you said you are an elder in training. So what would you care to explain something about that?
Well, basically, to be an elder, you've had to live quite a long time and have gained a lot of knowledge and wisdom. And so mostly elders are not really considered. And I mean, it depends on the field that you're working in as well, because not just anybody is going to be an elder. It's in us to lead. It's in us to speak out. It's in us to do the work that we know spiritually that we're led to do. And so I'm one of those people. I started young. There's a lot of stuff around that as well that I probably put in my biography for people to understand why these things happen. And there's meant and what I go through, many other women around the land go through as well. And it's kind of like you just something you're born to do. There are people who are always born in this world to do specific things. And for better women, I guess in the Indigenous community, many of us are standing up and taking that place. I think it's due to the women taken out of their rightful positions as the traditional stewards of the land. In many communities, it was always the women who were in total control. In the Dakotas, the Women's Council was very much a big part of Standing Rock and controlled a lot of what went on there. And it was the women who were doing the work in controlling that aspect of the camp, as well as our wonderful security, which we had a male security team and a female security team. So we have that balance, but women traditionally lead in many tribes. So there is importance of that and the matriarch system here on Turtle Island. Although not every tribe, I'm not going to speak for every tribe because I don't know every tribe's customs or ways. So I can't entirely speak for everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
Speak with just what I understand from the Dakotas and the work that I'm doing.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Just before we wrap up here, I'm sure you're aware there's a lot of issues going on right now in BC with the missing and murdered Indigenous women, and around the world, well, North America, with the residential school issues. Would you comment on those?
Yeah, a lot of, Indigenous people, we knew about these burial sites, and we knew that children from the residential schools that our relatives had gone missing and that they were murdered. We have known about these stories for a very long time, and however, for me, I think that time for the way everything is happening, it was all meant to happen this way, this time. We have the technology now to help us. And that was vital to the rest of the communities bringing that technology in and finding the bodies from these mass graves, because we have them all over where churches and residential schools were. And like I said, it was only a matter of time for it to come out. I myself, I know I have relatives out there in my area. And my relatives have relatives. It's endless. And I think.
Have you had experience in residential school yourself?
No.
Or you just know people?
No, I never did. But all my relatives, my parents, my aunts, my uncles, everybody that I know in the older age category, I know many. And of course, all my friends where I live, majority, all their elders went too. So what I am is kind of the second generation of that. And so, I mean, as terrible as it is, it's very destructive throughout our families. And I don't think people understand the extent of it. I was talking with my aunt and she was very abused in the school, and I said to her one day, I said, Auntie, I said, you know what? I said, I understand that, that you were abused at these schools. I said, by the white nuns and the white priest. I said, can you imagine how my age group feels? Because they sent those people home. And those people came home back to our communities and they abused us. They abused us the way they were abused. Because that's what happens. And that's how you destroy communities. You sent back these people, some who so destroyed. They did it to their own relatives, their own kids. Lost that purpose and meaning of who it was to be Indigenous, to protect our people, protect our women and children. These schools reverse that whole idea in many of our people, and it's handed down. We still have our communities full of perpetrators who are being hidden, who are being protected. And I hate to say that, but it's true. And now we have to clean that mess up, what was left. So this is extensive, what these residential schools done to our people. Extensive. It's why we have the highest rate in suicide, because of what's going on in our communities that we are trying so much to get a grasp on. Because it's why our youth today don't understand their rightful place on their own land. Because that was wiped out of us. It's been a continuous onslaught of destroying the people that we are. It's been continuous, nonstop. So if there's a lot of extremely angry Indians out there right now, that's why. And I don't blame anybody for everything that we're going through, because this is an extensive amount of trauma. Even though we knew it was coming and its time was going to come, we still have to deal with it now. And I've had to deal with it in many ways. Mm-hmm. I'm in a trauma state myself for the past while, and have to deal with many other people who are in trauma states right now. And I have to work on top of it to find ways that continue to help our people here and continue to help the people and the youth, because our idea is to help our young people move for the next 7 generations into a positive place. And if we don't do that, then the Indigenous people will be wiped out. There'll be no more real Indians, because it's taken out of the people who we are. So many of us Indigenous women, that's what we fight for. That's what we want to have to continue into our youth. It's why we have camps where you are taught traditional ways of living. That has to come back to our people, or our people will not exist in their heart. So the work is extensive. The residential schools has really taken its toll on our people. And I don't think a lot of people understand what that extent really is and how deep it runs. So
no, I 100% agree with you. Like, we don't, we can imagine, but, there's a lot of healing that has to take place. And, what does that look like?
Absolutely.
Where do we even begin?
Absolutely. And, when I was at my camp, my white allies came from the town 5 minutes away and said to me, "What are you doing for Thanksgiving, Geraldine?" at my camp. And I looked at them, and these were 2 teachers. I said, "You know what?" I said, "I'm going to give you guys some homework." I said, "You go home and you Google what Thanksgiving means to Indigenous people." I said, "And you guys come back tomorrow and ask me how I feel about Thanksgiving." So they did that. They went home, these 2 teachers, did their education, came back the next day, and they sat there with their heads down and said, "Geraldine, we didn't understand. We didn't know." And I said to them, that's why I sit here, to talk to whoever comes to this camp, to educate them that you have to understand who we are is not who you are. So, you know what we did? We created a new dinner. We created a forgiven dinner, not a Thanksgiving dinner. We needed to forgive, and I was willing to forgive at that time because my allies were supporting me from the town, and I was bringing people from Roseau River to the town of Gretna for the first time in history. The Indigenous people came and sat and had dinner with these people in Gretna, and we all ate together. And it was a way of forgiving each other for what's happened in that territory. So we need to have more forgiving dinners, because not everybody's thankful of what's happened here on Turtle Island, especially Indigenous people. We have nothing to have a dinner and Thanksgiving. That there was, that whole thing came from terror and trauma that was inflicted upon us. So if we're going to reconciliate, this word reconciliation, a lot of Indigenous people, we got a lot of work before we even get close to that.
Mhm.
But working together, sitting down with our allies, bringing people together, encouraging working together to fight who we really need to focus on, all of us, not just Indigenous people, but we have to learn to really forgive one another so we can work and bring unity amongst all of us, so we can really fight where the fight is needed, all of us together.
What is one thing a non-Indigenous person can do to be an ally, to move this forward, whatever that looks like?
To be honest, that's exactly what I've been working on this last little while. I've been having discussions with many of my Caucasian friends because they're asking that exact question. And so what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, you know what? Indigenous people, we have a lot of work to do, but we have a lot of areas in our lives that we're not educated in. So what we need is to sit with our allies who are prepared to work with us closely to create whatever it is that we need to create to help our people of the land. Because Caucasian society is advanced in many ways in the ways of the world. Our people are catching up, and we have many Indigenous doctors and lawyers and whatnot, but we just simply don't have enough. There's many areas lacking that Indigenous people need to be in. And that's important. That's really important. And I think that's where we need our allies. Because you know what, like for myself, example, I'm educated myself on things, but I'm also being able to ask my already educated allies to kind of, so I can skip through some processes and get done some work a little quicker. You know, because I came from the world of a tradeswoman. You know, ask me to fix your plumbing, rewire your electrical, fix your roof, make you a new room. I can do that, but Evans to Betsy, I got to write proposals for and grants and you know and so I'm catching up here. And you know what? I'm plugging along pretty quickly, and it's because I have wonderful allies who are helping me. So that's how we can help. Get involved, speak up, defend us, defend the camps, support the camps. That's really important. Get out to the camps if you can. Do what you can.
So Geraldine, I feel your passion. I feel your conviction. I'm in the verge of tears. Anyway, thank you for sharing all this. And I know it's a long road ahead. And I think it's fitting that you just said it's awareness and education, because that's where they started their eradication. They drag your people to residential schools. Now it's time to re-educate everybody, not just the Indigenous people, but everybody has to be re-educated and get a fuller awareness and a better understanding of what has been done and what damage has to be repaired, and maybe come closer to that word reconciliation. I know it's a long road ahead. So just to wrap things up, what would be your final message to the people who are watching us today? Like, what can we do to help? What can we do to get involved? What can we do to I'm such a crybaby. Help to move this forward. I'll give you the final word, darling.
Don't be complacent. Don't comply. Government doesn't know everything. There's things that we have to think about for the future. All of us. We all have to think about our future. We all have to protect the land and the water. It's important for our all of our survival around the world. So get involved, be active, anything. Do anything that you're possibly capable of doing. Even buying a t-shirt from Spirit of the Buffalo Camp.
What a powerful interview, Dawn. I think it was important to ask Geraldine about her personal reaction to the recent discovery of mass graves at residential schools.
I know, both of us were so heartbroken and were so moved by Geraldine's sharing of her reaction and her experience. It's so necessary that we have these conversations and try to educate ourselves about Indigenous history and what is now being discovered.
Indigenous people have been telling us for years about the horrific losses of family members and the existence of mass graves. Geraldine told us they knew it was only a matter of time before the truth would come out.
Most of us might have a hard time accepting this truth about our history. But we can only heal as a country when we embrace our Indigenous communities and give them the support they deserve to right the wrongs and work towards reconciliation.
It's important to remember the legacy of the residential schools and the extensive damage they did to Indigenous communities. As Geraldine says, those children of residential schools were sent back to their own communities, and many perpetrated the same abuses they were exposed to. Indigenous people have to deal with extensive generational trauma, and they live with this every day.
This is a sad reality, but Geraldine talks about opportunities like forgiveness dinners to replace Thanksgiving dinners. That is one example where we can make a difference. I am really touched by Geraldine's forgiveness and compassion, and the invitation she extends to all of us to heal our collective history.
Dawn, we had a moving conversation with Geraldine McManus, and I know I learned a lot more about the pipeline issues, as well as the global movement joining Indigenous groups to protect our natural resources.
These are important issues today, and there is so much we can do as allies by paying attention to the causes that Indigenous people are fighting for and supporting their camps and bring international awareness.
I agree, Dawn, that we should try to be informed and question if we are too complacent and trusting of our governments and corporations to consider the environmental impacts. This is a great debate that can only make us more informed, and hopefully we can keep corporate interests in check by speaking out about our duty to protect the environment.
I also think we need to sit down and to listen to our Indigenous people. Perhaps a camp or a ceremony, or go in and learn to try to understand the reasons why these issues are so important. Indigenous culture has so much to teach us, and they are welcoming and willing to do so, with the hopes of working together to protect our earth.
Well, we hope we made a difference by telling this story on Queer View Mirror.
We do strive to be woke and hope you learned something new today.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We will keep bringing you unsung heroes to inspire you and bring hope for the future.
We'll see you next time on Queer View Mirror.
Hey, now I'm glad you're here. I want to hear your point of view. I just might learn something that I never knew. Look into the mirror. I can see queer.